Hello, hello, hello. As you can see, it's a little bit of a different view today. I just looked up at the camera that's sitting right there, but my camera cord's not working. So we had a lot of things happen this morning, ladies and gentlemen, and I apologize for the late start. That is absolutely on me. First off, I had a call that ended up extending a little bit past where it was supposed to, but that's all good. Second off, I sit down, camera been working the whole time we're in the background, and then right as we go to start, boom, camera no longer works. So what can go wrong will go wrong, but nonetheless, we're here, ready to have a good time. Coach Sean, how you doing today?
Doing good, man. Can't complain. Ready to get into it. Happy to be here with the bros. Let's kick it.
Love it, love it. Glad to have you on. And Jake, it's been a while since we've had all three. And I'll
I
tell you
know.
what, we tried to get Jance, but we need to pull him away from the game.
Just so addicted to NCAA. Man, no, I love it. Like it's super cool. Uh I know I haven't seen Chance in a minute, man.
Yeah,
Mr.
man.
J.
Coach Jay, where you at, man?
Yeah,
What's up, bro?
what the hell, dude? What are you doing, man?
Yeah, bro. Come
Um
on.
no, it's good, man. It's a happy Friday to everybody. You know, it's always a good morning when you get tagged by Title Towel. You know, I got tagged this morning by Title Towel. Super happy about that.
Yeah.
And last night had some fun. Went on with Way Offsides podcast. They're great dudes.
Yeah.
They love Alabama football, and that's what matters. You know, they love football in general, and a lot of fun chit chatting with them for a little bit. Ty, you and me streamed last night. Coach Sean, we missed you, man. Coach Carl, we missed you, dudes. But hey, it's all good. We'll get after it for the weekend. It's get closer and closer to the season. I know we got more stuff rolling out. It's going to be a good time, you know. So, but the morning's good. I got my coffee. That's my old school sheriff logo. There you go. So that's the way to start my morning. Cheers.
Love it, love it. And shout out to everybody. We got LaQuatia, we got Poetic, we've got
Great
Ben
stuff.
G.
Indeed.
Stephen G says happy birthday. Stephen G's birthday. So happy
Oh,
birthday, Stephen. Glad you
happy
would
birthday,
choose to
bro.
spend that with us. That means a ton.
Fuck
We've got Travelpreneur, we've got Nicole, we
yeah.
have got
Entrepreneur.
Brandon,
Cole.
Boomer, and Boomer's asking the questions already, asking Coach Sean, is that the start to a lip sweater? And hey, he's gonna join the gang. He's gonna join
Hey,
the
Boomer, I
mustache gang.
started this because I ran out of Gillette Mach 3s, but
Chill
because
out.
of you, I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to leave it there,
Just let it
brother. I
roll, dude.
appreciate you for sure.
Let it roll. I like it.
Poetic says college football 25 doesn't understand 425, and it's frustrating. I'll tell you what they don't understand. I don't know if y'all have gotten to play it. I'm having a lot of fun with it, but I swear to you, I go and their press coverage, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
And I know by where the safeties are lined up, I'm like, okay, this is a blitz, right? It's
Yep.
got to be. It's either that or for, I don't know what else they'd be doing because I don't think that the AI can be in a cover four and then press from a cover four, right? I think
Hmm.
usually if the AI's cover four, it's usually they're giving some room. So I'm like, okay, I have a slant and I have a go with Kendrick Law on the outside. If I can get my running back to block, I got Kendrick Law on the outside. He's a burner. He's going to beat this cornerback off the rip. Or I got Jeremy Bernard on the inside running this slant, right? If the linebacker is the one blitzing, I got him real quick the second he plants that foot to go. I swear to you guys, I say hut, and it's like that Family Guy scene where Stewie gets the ball and then he looks up and says, and nobody's blocking. Right? I just get creamed instantly. And meanwhile, I got all these great defensive linemen, and my defensive linemen can't get home half the time that they do. So, great game, but it is frustrating in some aspects. But I'm going to tell you, gentlemen, what a way to start this conversation. Fall camp is here. We love talking about recruiting. It's no secret as I continue to look up at the camera because I'm not very bright. It's no secret how much I love recruiting.
Hmm.
But I can't express how excited I am now that recruiting is done.
Yep.
It's not done, but you get my point, right? Like, that's not the main focus.
Yeah.
Fall camp is here. And Jake, I wanted to continue a conversation we had yesterday.
Hmm.
And Coach Sean, I want to start with you because Jake and I got to talk about this yesterday, and I want to give your take on this and then allow Jake and I to go. The position group that I'm most excited about for Alabama in fall camp, and actually for a lot of teams, right? I'm most curious about this group for Texas. I'm most curious about this group for Georgia. I'm most curious about this group for Oklahoma, and all of those are good things, right? Not questions. I'm not quite. Uh, I'm not concerned. Basically, I'm curious as to how good they're going to be. That's your defensive line. Texas replacing two great guys, right? But for Alabama specifically, I think whenever we look, you have a young secondary. If this defensive line is as good as I believe it can be, you're going to really alleviate a lot of the pressure that's on that secondary. And there are a lot of names here that we can talk about up front. Renaud, James Smith, Tim Smith, Jamarian Latham, Keon Keeley. Then you got Tim Keenan. I mean, we can go on. Jeremiah Beeman, Hunter Osborne. I mean, Jaheim Otis. There are so many names. Coach Sean, talk to me about the importance of this defensive front, and then what position group are you most excited about?
I think the importance of the defensive front is asininely finite. You know what I mean? I think you have to crazily really need it. The importance of defensive line, especially with this defense and the type of coverage that Coach Womack and Jake's going to talk to you about that a little later. But the coverage, what he's talking about doing on the defense, and for the principles to actually work the way they're supposed to, you need the defensive line to perform well. You need the defensive line to perform well. What I really enjoy about our defensive line is I don't think people really understand we have a great mixture of veterans and young kids on that D line. We have some veterans that know how to play ball, right? The two Tims, if I call them T and T, Tim Smith, Tim Keenan. These guys have played a lot of football. Shout out to Anitra. What's up, Anitra? Shout out to LaQuasia. Shout out
Yeah.
to all the people. Patriot Life, my broski Rob in the house. What's up, brother? How you doing? How
What
you
up?
feeling? Moon Rocker. Man, listen,
I call
Nicole,
them the law
everybody in
firm
here.
of Smith and Smith, Coach.
For sure, for sure.
Mhm.
You need to understand how to get that body right. Holla at your brother. Holla at Lisa Fitz, you and Moon Rocker. You put them two together.
Honestly, I
Yes,
still need
you
Yeah.
that
got it.
message, Moon Rocka. I'm over here struggling.
Facts,
Jack,
facts,
dude.
man.
Just
Jack,
getting ripped.
love it.
Okay,
Exactly.
okay.
Yes,
Easy
sir.
now.
Dude, we're
Easy.
just talking about how ripped Moon Rocker is, okay?
So, I get it, man. The defensive line, especially for this season in this defense, it'll be of great importance, man.
Mm.
But as I said, I like the fact that we got a good mixture of veterans. We got a really, really good mixture of young guys like Jordan Renard coming in. So many young defensive linemen that's going to be a problem. You mix these young guys, James Smith, you mix this guy in. These guys' turn are coming. Their turn is coming, man. And you mix the veterans with these young kids. Alabama has a very deep defensive line. Don't make no mistake about it. That's why I wasn't as up in arms as the young kid transferring to the West Georgia school. No disrespect to the kid. I just wasn't up in arms like that about it. Defensive line may be the one worry I don't have. I don't have with defensive line. We have depth, we have skill, we have veteran leadership, and we got some young dogs that's ready to put belt to ass. So as far as the defensive line, I'm not concerned with those guys, but it is true what you said, Ty. That group has to play well to make this thing go. As far as the group that I feel is as important as I'm excited about, I guess is the word we use, it's the offensive line. It's the offensive line. I kind of know what I'm getting with Jeremy Bernard. I kind of know what I'm getting with Kendrick Law and Kobe. I'd love to see Ryan, as everybody would, Rico Scott, Jaron Hamilton, I hear is ripping it up.
Yep.
But for me, it's the offensive line. I'm excited to see Caden. I give Caden Proctor one hell of a endorsement because maturity is something that we don't see from kids his age these days a lot. You know what I'm saying? We all know coaching high school ball, being around these kids. Some of these kids are crazy with a capital C, right? And I'm just keeping it rated G, right? Some of these kids are different, right? So to see Caden transfer, take all the brunt and all the punishment, we all going in on him for that kid to turn around and come back. And me and Jake talked about this, the love of the offensive line, the love
Yeah.
of Wilkin Formby, the love from Tyler Booker, the love
Yeah.
that these guys had to make that kid come back to Bama. I applaud Caden Proctor, man, because he went through it. He knew
Mhm.
he was going to get beat up for it. He didn't care. He came back. He's probably going to start out at second, third, whatever team. But I'm excited to see Caden because I know Caden can play. For
Oh,
all
yeah.
that kid struggles really quickly, people forget from the middle of the season toward the end, Caden played well until he got hurt. High ankle sprain. We all know that's a horrible injury. Still played against Georgia. Still played against
Mhm.
Michigan. Caden Proctor's going to be a dog, right? I don't have to worry
Dog.
about him getting in trouble off the field. I don't
Yep.
have to worry about him not getting his books. This kid gonna come in. He's lost. He was 370. Now he's down about 335, 340. Caden Proctor's not gonna be 310, guys. He's a dense, big kid. You can get that kid down to about 325, 330. That is one hell of a win. And I'm excited to see him. I'm excited to see our interior, which may be the best interior offensive line in the country. And I'm excited to see Wilkin Formby, Miles McVay, and Elijah Pritchard compete for the rest of those tackle spots. So for me, I'm excited to see our offensive line.
Yes. That was,
Yeah,
man, I
Jake,
tell you
pick it
what.
up.
Yeah, no, seriously. I just wanted to pause so everybody could hear that. You know what I mean? Like it was Coach Sean like hit it on the money. Yeah, we did that video and there were some really good points made by both Coach Sean, obviously, and Coach Carl. And I'll tell you, man, like the offensive line, yes, they are that group. That's why we did that video, right? Because we really wanted to highlight like how great that group's going to be, what some fun things to look for in that group's going to be, why the scheme fits. One thing that I thought about last night too, while I was sitting on way outsides with that group, is we look at college football and we look at constant transition and change of college football, right? Like, why was Nick Saban's defense created? Well, it was created to combat some of these offenses that went from tighter formations to spread out formations that wanted speed and, again, vertical routes, but also that defense, that pattern match cover 3 defense, right, is also created to make sure there's numbers in the box. So when you do play against a power team, right, you're not getting just smoked in the run game. So we now look at what they're doing, right, with this again, continue to spread the field out, one-on-one matchups, basketball on turf or on grass, as we call it, right? And you are now having to adjust and adjust and adjust. Well, the big thing of making that adjustment comes down to also that offensive line. Like, dude, you no longer can have these dudes who are just massive tanks, right? Massive tanks who can't really move, right? I mean, you need guys who can move. You need athletes. You need guys who can jump up like a Michael Carroll and in Jackson, right? And who can go up and dunk the basketball, who can full on play, right? Any sport could run out there and play tight end if they wanted to. You need these sort of athletes who can move, but also have strength. Again, we highlighted some key guys, but we look at like Booker. We really look at Jaden Roberts, right? Jaden Roberts, man, I don't know what happened to your camera, Coach Sean. It also went off. You see that? Crazy. Anyways, but like Jaden Roberts, you look at him, that guy, if we think, based on the fact that maybe he's lose some body fat and he looks, just absolutely, I mean, the guy looks chiseled. He's looking real diamond like.
And Jaden Roberts was the guy on the offensive line. I was like, oh, he's going to come into this season just like he did last season because,
Yeah.
we talk about maybe too much weight on the offense. That wasn't a conversation we were having about him.
No.
He was exempt from that
100%,
conversation.
man. But I'll tell you, like, that guy's a great example, size wise, where you're looking at somebody and you're going, okay, that guy's he's gonna move people. He's gonna be extremely strong, right? And at the same time, he's extremely athletic. I think you're gonna see that this year, especially with like Kane Proctor, right? And you talk about like guys talking about 370 last year to like 330s this year. It's almost a 40-pound loss. You know what I mean? Like 40-pound, that's crazy amount of loss. You got to be feeling real, real good. And I'll tell you, that's where I'm saying I'd rather have guys who are strong and can move so you can face up against the majority of what you're seeing today, which is speed and length, So, man, Patriot Life, we appreciate you, man. I got to get back to work. Hey, get you, dude, man. Get after it today. I hope you have a great Friday. Happy Friday to you and a great, great weekend, my man. Good to see you, Rob.
Appreciate you as always, Patriot Life.
I want to see these dudes who can move and be athletic and function as one, right? I don't want just one or two guys who can do that. I need all of them to do it, because that's a unit that has to work as one, right? Especially. So, I'm excited for that group. I mean, the offensive line, obviously the key group. We did that video, but I think I'll move to a different group. And I think we really look at this for Alabama football and what that key group is going to be. It all starts in the trenches. We discussed a little bit about defensive line yesterday. I would say that D line is probably going to be like that group that has to show out in this defense, right? And I've talked about it a little bit, Ty, and I know we discussed it a little bit, but for you, the D line has always kind of been that group that you thought was going to excel coming into the season.
Yeah, and you and I were talking. Shout out Jeff Horn. He was wondering about defensive line recruiting, and though it's not something that I'm necessarily super concerned with, because you have London Simmons, because Steve M reclassifies. If anybody asks the question, "Hey, are you hesitant about what's happened?" I understand it, right? Like it's one of those questions that even if I might not agree with the sentiment behind it, I completely understand why it would be asked. Yeah. And my explanation to Jeff, and the reason why I keep bringing this up, is because one, it was a good question, right? Like they're really good questions. You guys in chat, you guys ask great questions, and I've been starring them, and we're going to circle back and answer some of them. But my take to Jeff was like, hey, I think with this new scheme, Golding was heavy on linebackers, right? Like linebackers needed to run, fly around. But I think with what Womack is going to do, your defensive front is going to be very disruptive. And I think you have the bodies to be able to do so. And luckily for Alabama, Coach Sean, he said it best, right? And it's not something that I have said. It's something that I have – no, you know what? I can't even say I've hinted towards it, because I've given you the names, but I haven't gone and really stated exactly what Coach Sean said. And I think that it's a point that I've done you all a disservice by not saying it. There is a great combination of youth and experience in this room. And that to me is super key, right? Like you have the law firm of Smith & Smith, you have Jeremiah Beeman, you have Jordan Renaud, you have Hunter Osborne, you have Edric Hill. As Coach Al said, LT Overton, who, by the way, if he is as good as he is in NCAA 25, watch out. Because he is a demon. He and Coot are a demon in NCAA 25. Like that guy right there is insane. Benji, I saw your comment. I wanted to tell you this. After my first season for Bama in Dynasty, Anthony Hill hit the transfer portal. And Benji, you know how I feel about Anthony Hill. He's rolling with the tide right now, right? He's rolling with the tide, because God forbid I don't want to see him on the other side of the field. That guy is a monster. So, I listen, I love it. I love it. Yeah. You see that? You see that? It's the slight things. It's the pew pew. It's the slight things over here.
I like it. Pew pew.
And so, yeah, no, I think the offensive line is a great group, and I think that boo. Yeah, fair enough. I think that we have some questions. One about the offensive line, right? And Anthony was asking whether or not we thought that the offensive line needed to lose some more weight, like Booker and Proctor, and they have Anthony. And listen, guys, Anthony, our resident Miami fan. So we're going to actually talk about some Miami today, Anthony. But they both have dropped, I think, about 20 pounds, maybe even 25 pounds, and they might drop another 5 through the course of fall camp, right? Like, so they could be down 25, 30 pounds from where they were last year. So that's all, you're 100% on the money with this one, Anthony, because of the scheme Coach Kalen DeBoer runs. You need that movement, and they have the ability. They played a little heavy last year, but it's there.
You know what, Ty? You know what's crazy about this too, and Coach Sean, is we talk, it was really interesting to listen to Baloo, right, talk about like what they're doing in the weight room. Blue, for those who don't know, right, is our strength and conditioning head coach, right? But he is this guy, and forgive me because they brought in another guy from Sanford, from the sports science side of things. That was really, he started along with another couple of people. They started like a new tracking way to track, really break down the science. Put it that way. Like I am not smart enough to talk on that level of what they're doing, but I am smart enough to talk a little bit about this part, is translating, like so fatigue, right? When you're working out, Ty, I hit on this a little bit last night, but
Yeah, this was fascinating.
when
Please
you're
expand on
working
this.
out, yeah. So you think about the way bodybuilders work, you think about the way fitness athletes work, right? And what they're constantly trying to do is peak at right times, right? With their body, with their strength, with their physique, but with also overall, you would say their nutrition and everything combined. If you peak at the right time, Arnold Schwarzenegger was really good at this. So that's just bodybuilding. Granted, we're looking at crazy numbers and all this stuff. But now let's take like bodybuilding and then put it into the way we would look at an offensive lineman or even a defensive lineman for this perspective. And let's also add in the numbers of your overall strength, but also your explosiveness. Okay. So as you go through this time of the season, the whole idea is that early right now, these guys are starting out probably pretty high. They're peaking right now. 2 weeks in the fall ball, they're going to hit a plateau. And because that's the way it works, right? Through your workouts, if you want to gain muscle, you have to continuously, you're going to run really good, you're going to plateau, and then you're going to have to peak again by changing your routines, right? Like you put stress, it's the same thing as a human mind, right? If you want to grow, you need to face adversity. Okay. You need to be stressed out a little. If you're comfortable, you're not going to get to where you need to get to because you're not going to change. Right? The same thing goes for the muscle. The same thing goes for explosiveness, fast twitch muscle fibers. Okay. So you look at this, and the way they've broken down the science is you go from a standpoint of these big dudes, these massive dudes, man, where they go in and they are training to be big. They're eating whatever, right? They're just trying to keep and maintain size. Now we've gotten it to a science where we are tracking everything in your nutrition because we want you to peak start of the season. We want you to peak. At some point, you're going to hit a plateau, right? But we need you to peak again. So we need to get you back out of that plateau. We are going to track you every single minute. Booker talked about like the meal tracking. Rock Montgomery and his mom have talked about holding each other accountable for nutrition and staying on point. Rock looks amazing, right? Jane Roberts, who is a huge, big dude in fitness for him. He is massive about this. He loves this. Talks about like his workout routine, but also his nutrition. Shoot, his mom brings it up too. Like, I mean, and that's good. You need that support system, especially when you're doing this. Because if you think about it this way, these guys aren't just training for one competition or two competitions like you see bodybuilders, right? They're training all for a full season of beast mode. Full season. So they are going through their little valleys, but then they're going to peak again. And we don't want those plateaus to dip lower than what the previous plateau was. We want to make sure our plateaus are stacking so our peaks continue to get higher and higher, right? In that, I love the fact that they have now really put into it. They're going, we're not tracking necessarily all these other aspects. We're tracking like your explosive numbers. We're tracking your strength numbers through the gym. We're tracking these things because if those are going up, it's telling us that you are hitting a peak. It's telling us you're on your way out of a plateau. If you are not quite hitting the numbers, you're dropping a little bit, you might be entering a plateau. So what can we do to get you out of the plateau faster? You want to talk about a place that is innovative in doing things different. If you are a freaking recruit and you want to see how fast these guys are putting on muscle, that is the place to go, dude. You want to maximize your potential physically. That's where you need to go. I mean, you're going to do it mentally there anyways because of the standard. But physically, they are doing some things that are different that you have not seen. And I got to tell you, man, it is impressive. It's impressive. And that right there is why you're going to see such a powerful offense, a powerful defense. But that offensive line, why I'm not worried at all with what they're doing and what they're trying to make these guys into, as far as just muscle machines, man, that can blow stuff up and run like the Incredible Hulk.
No, 100%, 100%. And that's a fascinating conversation, especially for like not only just listening to this, right? And JC, I don't know. I think Fox on NCAA 25 is supposed to be James Smith. I think because
Who?
I can't Fox. It's because if you didn't opt in, they have to, transition. They have to kind of, but I don't know who he's. JC asked, "Is that who Fox is on the NCAA 25?" I don't know who that is. I that would just be a guess of mine. But that's a fascinating conversation to me, Jake, because as someone who just started working out again, and I mean it's been a long time, right? A very very long time. I'm just starting to learn all of this, and Anthony's saying right here that he's got a buddy who works in sports science and was telling him that like one of the things with the NFL is that it's this kind of war between how do we utilize your fast twitch muscle fibers while you're carrying as much weight as you need to stop an Aaron Donald who's coming at you, right? Like that's awfully tough.
It's all about recovery. Like that's why the science behind the recovery is so important. That's how that's why I'm saying instead, like you're stacking plateaus, right? Because those plateaus are points of recovery that you have to get through to start going up a peak again. But if your plateau from your last one is higher, meaning like your explosive numbers are still higher, your strength numbers are still higher, right? You're still showing based on all the other little things they'll do with your blood pressure, all the stuff that they measure, right? And the things they measure, maybe even in your blood. But if each one of those is higher, that means they're accomplishing the goal because you're not going to plateau as deep and you won't have to come out as steep, right? Like, so you can you're gaining consistently through the season. So that way, when you do end up towards the end of the season, you can still be in a position where you are performing at a high level as you possibly can, right? With going through that much, stress and abuse on your body, especially in the game of football. And it's all about that recovery aspect. How do we shorten the plateaus, make sure they stack each time, and that way your point of getting to peak is shorter on each window, right? Like I think it's genius. I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't see that in college. God, if they would have done that, but now you look at it, why do you think these boys look like they're freaking ready to like run through a wall? Like they walk in there and look at what Mbakwe put on within weeks, months of being there, like muscle wise. I mean, it's insane.
It's even in high school now, man. I mean, you look at the guys for Alabama. Did Ballou was at IMG? No, right? Like he was.
Yes.
And you look at a place like a Duncanville, right? I can tell you this firsthand. A trophy club, high school, Byron Nelson High School. Their facilities are insane. Like it's ridiculous. We had nice facilities at Gainesville High School. I must say, for a 3A high school in Texas, it was crazy. We had a field house that was separate from the school with a really nice weight room. But you go to like a Byron Nelson High School and you looked at theirs, and it was like 10 of ours. And just the sports science has come so far. Coach Sean, I was talking whenever you ended up having to dip out for a second, I was talking about there was a point you made that I think is incredibly key. And that's the mixture of experience and youth in this defensive line. Because one of the questions I get is, am I worried about defensive line recruiting? And had it not been for Steve M reclassifying, I might be beginning to be a bit like, ooh, we got to win Justice Terry, because even now I really want to win Justice Terry. I don't want Kirby and Georgia to have Griffin, Terry, and Gibson. That's a lot of firepower up front.
Yes.
I would much rather Justice Terry either go to Bama or go to Oregon. Just go to Oregon, man.
No,
They'll get you right.
please don't
They
go
said
there.
no.
Please don't go to Oregon. Jesus, Oregon's stacked
you
in
get
your
my
class
point.
too.
True, but it's one of those things where I'd rather deal with you in the playoffs than
Yeah,
deal
no,
with
I hear
you possibly 3 times, right? Because
Yeah.
you're going to play Georgia during the season. You're probably going to play them in the SEC championship if you get to that point, right? Like, I'm not guaranteeing, but you get my point, right? Like, if you're going to the SEC championship, there's a chance you see him 3 times, and then maybe you see him in the playoffs. That's rough. That's really rough. 5 Adams says we can flip Sharma. I would love to. I think he's a hell of a player. I think Texas got themselves a dude.
They did. Yep.
And I don't blame Texas for playing the NIL game. Oregon was playing the NIL game. If you got it, we said this the other day, man. If Phil Knight was a Bama alum, I'd be like cheering, being like, heck yeah, throw around all this money. As you can see, if I move, the laptop moves, and then we get a little crazy. So listen, shout out to Texas. You saw someone you wanted. You were able to play the NIL game. It's perfectly legal now. You got a great collective. You got a dude. Because I think Sharma is still underrated. So love that discussion. Coach Sean, we had a question in regards to Alabama's offensive line that I wanted to give to you, and then we're going to answer some questions and move into almost a continuation of this conversation, but we're going to marry some topics over here. Javion Smith says, could this offensive line be top 10? Shout out to everybody in chat if we haven't gotten to shout you out yet. Al Sanders saying it'd be great to have a discussion around the sub packages. I agree. We'll get into that. But what do you expect for this offensive line? Shout out Coach Carl with the $4.99, guys. If you haven't subscribed to Coach Carl, go do so. Great content, up and coming YouTuber. Love being able to talk with him anytime I can. So, Coach Sean, what do you think your expectations are for this Alabama offensive line?
I think with the recent weight loss, and first I apologize for dipping out, guys. Utility crew out here in the subdivision building new houses, and they cutting power off, and it zapped off and zapped on, and we know how that go. Everything got to reload nowadays.
Damn
everything.
Assholes.
Damn clock on my microwave flashing like.
It's 1 a.m, guys. Hey, Coach I, what's up, man?
Coach I, what's up, bro?
Hey,
so
man, slow motion, man. Trying to get moving.
Yeah, man. How you doing, brother? Good to see you,
What's
man.
going on?
So
What's
for me,
going on,
man,
brothers?
oh man, nothing much, man. Just talking a little ball. About to get into this offensive line real quick. For me, man, what's up, Coach Al? How you doing, man?
Coach Al.
For me, Coach Carl, Coach Al, both our broskies in here. For me, I don't know yet, man. I can give you what I would hope, When I say I don't know, I mean my I don't know is probably the biggest I don't know that you could possibly have because of where we left off and new schematic and new body shaping things we're going through and new techniques we're going through. This is not a down blocking scheme. This is not a hat on the hat 7-on-7. I mean, excuse me. It's not a down blocking hat on the hat type scheme. This is a strictly a counter scheme, right? So it's one thing to play like defense. It's one thing to play gap defense. It's another thing to play even front type stuff. 1 gap, 2 gap. Well, offensive line is sort of similar on the other side of the ball. This offense, you can't be lazy with this offensive line and lean on the man in front of you. This is too much movement in this offensive line. When I say movement, man, listen. If you watch these guys, all 22 tape.
Yeah.
When I say pulling, I'm talking about 100% pulling across the formation. I'm talking about the left guard and left tackle will pull in unison across the entire front side of the formation, following each other like a train. Like we call that cleaning up, convoy style, right? You pull to the other side of the formation.
Yes.
Your left
style.
guard and left tackle are on the, we call it on the center's butt. You pulling on the center's butt You're not trying to get in the backfield to disrupt the play. You're trying to get as skinny as you can off that center's butt, and they pulling clean up on the other side of the formation. So you got to have offensive linemen that can absolutely move. That first step after hike is the way you're going, right? That first step is that way. So I don't know yet. I really don't know, guys. I don't know. If you ask me what I believe with the recent weight loss. I mean, these guys are all great athletes. These are not offensive linemen from the '90s. That's just big beer bellies and run block you to death, right?
Yeah.
We hate third and long because we know he couldn't pass block very long. These
Mhm.
guys are athletes, man. Jaden Roberts look like he play tight end right now. I mean,
I
that
mean,
kid is
yeah.
he doesn't look like an offensive lineman, right?
Yep. Yep.
Tyler Booker, I seen him standing next to Wickman Formby and Caden Proctor, and Tyler Booker like he's a little boy now compared to those big old dudes. So I couldn't believe all that weight Tyler's lost. So I do believe with this recent athletic philosophy change,
Mhm.
I do believe this offensive line will be well. Pinning, pulling, counteraction, counter with the guards, counter with the tackles, counter with the center. I do understand that it takes a different skill set, you know, pass set, pass blocking, kick slide, all these things will still be implemented in playing offensive line. But at the same time, the philosophy changes. So I do believe with the recent coaching changes that we've had with Coach Cap coming in, I think we'll be just fine. I actually like what we're doing now better than the philosophy that we had last year. Just lean on everybody, 100, with personnel and sub packages and things of that nature coming in. It's very difficult to lean on people for 4 quarters now. It's very
Mhm.
difficult with the
especially if you're not
athleticism of
going quick.
especially if you're not going quick. Thank you, Ty. That's a great point because nowadays you have outside linebackers that are not 6'4", 260. These guys are 6'3", 215, and they coming off the edge. They call them edges now. That's your name, edge
Yeah.
now. So you have to have the offensive tackles that can really play in space, that can really, really, really kick slide quick and get out there quick and cover a lot of ground, man. You got to really be a good athlete to play tackle, especially left tackle in these
Mhm.
big Power 5 conferences now because they got some hellified athletes coming off the edges. So my hope, in answering your question, my hope is that it works well, and I think it will. But I just can't really say for sure now because I do not know because I hadn't seen it, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, I think what you're going to see too with the O line, real quick, Ty, we get into this, and it's funny because I'm Coach I. You're in here, and for everyone who doesn't know, Coach I, Fanatic Sports, freaking amazing. Do the morning shows, jump on with him on Thursday mornings. We get to talk ball, but we've been talking a lot
He
about
heard me say that I prayed to the Most High that Georgia doesn't end up with
Yeah,
Griffin
oh, I know, and he hopped right
Championship, and
in.
he's like,
We had,
"I'm here to deliver the bad news." Oh my
Can I say
God!
this, Jake, before you go? Speaking
yeah,
of Georgia,
cool.
let me
Yeah,
say this real quick, 10 seconds. What made Georgia so well, even though Kirby don't spread it out, just throw the ball all over the field. Georgia recruited and developed offensive linemen that had girth. That might be the wrong word. That had
no, I think you're
body
right.
by body
But
mass
yes,
and could move. Right.
yeah,
These
you're
guys
right.
just weren't run blockers, man. Right. You look at some of these guys. The guy is playing for the Steelers right now. The guy's playing for the Giants right now. Thomas, the Steelers tackle.
Marius Mims from last year. He
Yeah,
was
Yes,
he
these
was
guys
crazy
not
by the
only were
time.
big kids, but
Mm-hmm.
they were kids that were fleet of foot. They could actually get out in space and pass block. These kids could pull when needed. These guys were developed very, very well.
Right. I think one of the biggest things for y'all offensive line, one of the keys is y'all got the center, the transfer from Washington to
Yeah,
follow Kalen DeBoer. He knows the scheme, you know what I'm saying, and he can actually hike a ball in the shotgun.
yep,
So
yep.
I think that's going to help a lot. Help all those other interior linemen get used to the scheme. So I think that was a big get in the all season.
Yeah, I think that was
100%. And it
huge.
goes to Coach Al's, Jake, before you go, I just wanted to address this real quick. It goes to Coach Al's point right here saying how
Yeah.
Milrow is going to be key for the O-line execution. But like Coach I says, I think also Parker Brailsford, he's that type of center that can help align the offensive line and be like, okay, there's the blitzing line. You didn't have that last year, and you had a brand new quarterback. It was just a tricky situation, right? And then you had some teams just blitzing from different areas, and you didn't have that guy like a Landon Dickerson who would point and be like, hey, he's blitzing and help his quarterback out. And I think now, like Coach I says, you have that with Brailsford. Jake, go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I was going to get at. I'm glad you brought that up because when you're looking at it too, these different schemes we've heard Coach Cap talk about in different interviews. He had one again with Ryan Fowler over at Tide 100.9. And in that, the question was asked, what is the scheme that you guys run? Like, what is your blocking scheme? They do not have just a direct one scheme that they run. It's a combination of multiple different schemes, right? You'll see gap, you'll see the zone, you'll see pin and pull, right? You'll see all the different things utilized depending on what they're trying to do. I would say most at this point in time, there's not a lot of teams anymore who just stick to one foundational scheme. Again, it's the multiverse, right? If you want to get into the Avengers world, right? Like it is the multiverse of college football now because you're having to combat so many different things. It's funny when you listen to D'Anton Lynn. Okay. I listened to an interview just recently because I'm going to release a video on USC soon and why I think they'll be all right. Yeah. I heard it. I said it, everybody. Well, I think they're going to be okay. Because D'Anton Lynn is a very smart dude, but what they also have on defensive side of the ball, I tune in hard on defense, right? Like
Matt Entz as well.
Matt Entz. I mean, Henderson, like there's a lot of aspects, but D'Anton Lynn brings up something really interesting. He talks about in NFL, you do not have to scheme so far outside of your key foundational things you run on defense for each week, right? He said, for the most part, there are minor changes you technically need to make. It's more so keying up on players and what they're doing. He goes, there's not a lot of week to week differences between what's being ran in the NFL within each league, right? He said, now I will tell you this. When you go to college, he goes, you literally could go from facing one style of offense one week and have to completely change what you want to do the next week because you are now facing a different style of offense. And there is this constant change. He goes, so your playbook, your outline, right, of how you follow week to week, it expands greatly, right? Because this week we're going to have to use this stuff. Now we're going to have to pull stuff from this week and install this new package because now we're facing this. Lot of change, right? So with that being said, how do you fix that so you don't have to overload your players? And you do that with making sure you're bringing in, number one, guys who are very versatile. But number two, you also have to bring in the right guys into each position who can communicate correctly, right? That communication ends up being real key so guys can understand these concepts. And when out in the field, right, they're able to quickly pick up on those identifiers because the right guy is saying the right words at the right time and pointing out the right things. Key and Parker Brailsford. Okay. One thing everyone has said about Parker, if you go back and you look at all the offensive linemen that got drafted, the guys who just went over to Ole Miss, one of the things they have said is the one thing about Parker was phenomenal, like a bulldog, right? The guy would just get after it, no pun on that with Georgia. That's what I'm saying, but I'll say he'd get after it. But the thing is his communication was phenomenal. His ability to see and understand what the goal was of the offense for that moment, for what Penix is calling, and then being able to shift his thoughts into saying, Penix, we make this audible call. I now know what we're running. I communicate that to my guards who communicate to my tackles, right? And now we run synchronized. You saw that run it was very fluid. There wasn't a lot of teams that were able to disrupt that. Then you get into a point where you say, okay, why do we need the athleticism though? Because when teams are able to disrupt that, we need those guys to be able to rely on their physical athletic gifts. That's where it comes in with teams like Georgia, right? And where, Ty, we talked about it, Coach I, we even brought it up a little bit behind the scenes, but like the recruiting aspect of what Georgia is going after in this defensive line, man, Georgia, their strong point, and Coach Howe, you could speak on this. Their strong point, at least what I've seen from their defense, is their staple is making sure that they disrupt the blocking scheme before it gets implemented into place. Block destruction, right? Like it blow it up before things can create a alley or create any sort of tool. So you have to dramatically figure out and kind of play off a whim, you know?
Right. I think that is correct. When we're at our best, we have the disruptors on the D line, and I think last year we had a good D line, but we didn't have those disruptors on the D line. We didn't have the Jordan Davis, we didn't have Devontae Wyatt, we didn't have Jalen Carter. I think our D line kind of took a step back last year, and that's what we're looking for this year. You gotta disrupt these guys because, like Coach Sean was saying earlier, man, these guys are more athletic on the O line. They get out in space. You let the play get going, then you're putting a lot of pressure on your outside linebackers and your corners, even in the run game and the short passing game, to make plays. When you watch us at our best, our guys were disrupted and our linebackers were running free. One of the reasons why N'Kobe won the buckets is because he was playing behind, that D line. Yeah, he was able to run free. Him and Roquan too, back in 2017, just running free, making plays. So I think we should be better there, but that for sure, that is that's our calling card, getting it, disrupting the offensive line before the play even gets started. So
yeah, man, and that's what's crazy, man. You look at that and you're just like, okay, how do we fix that? Right? Like, how do we fix that? Communication is key, which we have that piece in Parker over at Alabama, but now also I need these guys to be fast and explosive. I don't just need size. I need athletes, right?
Right.
And that's where I feel good about what they're doing. You know what I'm saying? Like 100% on the offensive line. Like it's going to be exciting. But
I think early on Milroy helped too. His legs, that always helps the offensive line look better. Especially if if they're missing some assignments or something, he can escape pressure. So it gives them a little bit of time to gel together and learn that offensive blocking scheme.
Yeah, 100%.
Well, I'll tell you what helps is when you have Coach Carl dropping the $4.99. Appreciate you, Coach Carl, saying awesome content. Thank you very much for the support, and thank you everybody for being here. I always say this, and I'm going to say it again. I understand that the two most valuable assets you have in life is time and health, and so I cannot eloquate how much it means for you to be spending your time here with us today. While you're here, be sure to go subscribe to all these guys. Be sure to subscribe to the Fanatic Sports Network. Be sure to subscribe to Coach Sean. Be sure to subscribe to Jake's channel, to Coach Carl's channel. And if you're not subscribed here, I'd love to have you a part of this awesome community, because that's what this is all about. We're just college football content creators. We're fans who love talking football, and that's why we do this. So thank you very much for the $4.99. Gentlemen, I did, if MGB is correct, Ole Miss just took a massive – I don't know. What are you referring to, Stephen? Does anybody know what that could be?
Take a peek. Let me take a peek.
Did they lose a player?
We'll find out here. Let me see here.
I'm gonna be honest with you. It's Ole Miss as far as their talent. If it ain't Jackson Dart or the starting running back, I don't think it really matters. They going and got a lot of people out of port. Now, if you tell me Walter Nolan went down, then that might be a problem for them, because they brought in Nolan and Umamielen from Florida to bolster their defensive line. So if one of those guys went down, then yeah. But if they just had they lost a recruit, I don't think that's gonna matter this year.
Yeah, I don't know.
Stephen G is saying rumored Dart tore ACL. That would be awful.
Yeah, that sucks, dude.
Stop, bro. Don't say that. Like, I'm a college football fan. I am a Georgia alum, man, but I'm a college football fan, and
yes.
Not that though. I don't wish anybody to get hurt, but if somebody
injured, no.
You know what I'm saying? Like, if somebody tears their ACL, listen, man, I'm not getting on the walk-ons, dog. But I mean, especially think about that, man. Like, they are one of the more talented teams in the nation, and not just the SEC, man. And if they lose their guy, we talked about this a little bit on the Respect the Hedges for our Georgia show. Like, we can't lose Carson Beck. Like, can we still win games? Yeah, we might even sneak in the playoffs without Carson Beck, but it's gonna be ugly. And we can't win no natty without Carson Beck. So dog, like that. I hope that's not true. I hope that's
Yeah.
not true.
I hope not, but I just right as Steven said that, I received a DM
Oh
that
man.
said rumor.
Uh,
And like we said, and apparently this is coming from Message Board Genius, so I do want to get that out in the
I
forefront.
got you.
Mm.
I got
This
you.
right now, I do want to let it. I just found where MBG is, Message Board Genius. Hopefully, this is just a rumor. Hopefully, there are
Right.
no legs to this,
Right.
and Dart would be healthy because, man, I would really, really like to see him healthy and see what he can do because
Right.
he's a catalyst, right? And Old Miss is a team where they could get over that hump that they've had with him. And I shouldn't even say a hump, guys, because last
Well,
year they lost 2 games. And if you're going to lose 2 games to Georgia and Bama,
Well, I was gonna say to the hump. The hump has been Georgia and Bama, but this year
true.
they only have to play Georgia. They don't have to play Bama this year.
Mhm.
And he actually has the horses this year to compete. Lane hadn't had the horses. He just
Yeah.
has not had the horses, man. Ole Miss, they weren't devoid of talent, but they weren't on Georgia's level and Bama's level as far as talent. He
Nope.
has the roster talent this year to compete. So, and then having only played Georgia, I mean,
Right.
wow.
And they weren't able to play man like I know Pete Golden wants to play a little bit of man. They play more zone.
Yeah.
But they got the transfer from Alabama. The guy wore number 9 last year. I forgot what his name is. Played DB for y'all. He actually is. He didn't get a lot of playing time, but he
Amos
played. Yeah, he
Yeah,
played in the
Trey
SEC
Amos.
championship, and he came in and
played
actually
good.
played really good. So that would lend to more man-to-man, defenses for Ole Miss if that's true. So hopefully Jackson Dart is all
Man,
right, man.
yeah, I really hope that that's just a rumor.
Yeah.
And from what I saw on Message Board Genius, it didn't look like it was coming from an Old Miss
Okay.
site. It looked like it was coming from someone else. I just saw Maroon. So I'm assuming Mississippi State because I don't know what other Maroon team would be talking about it. So I pray that this is just a rumor
This is
because
troll. Somebody trolling. That's what it is.
I hope so, man.
God, I hope so. God, I hope so.
This
But
is not for team, but this is Jackson Dart's money year for NFL too, man. Like,
exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Like
Exactly.
that you talking about this kid future, dog. Like that's crazy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's got the ability. But Coach Al, you started talking about some transfers that Ole Miss got, and one of might be an Aggie. Ben G says they could. I just saw Maroon. So I don't even know where it's coming from. But I did want to talk about some of the most impactful transfers that occurred during this college football offseason. I'm going to give you all 3. And I could go on and on about the Bama guys, but I've done so before. Right? I've told you about Damani. I've told you about Saab. I've told you about Parker Brailsford. I'm going to let some of my co-hosts, if they choose to go that route, do that because I've had so many conversations with you all about those guys. I'm going to take 3 different names. First off, Ben G, you're going to love me for this one. Andrew Makuba with Texas. I mean, that was huge.
That was huge.
Huge, especially, and I understand that Brooks played cornerback, but you needed secondary help. You got a guy who's very intelligent, who's very good, very, very good. And then you double down with the and I forget his name, Javion Cole, is it, from San Jose State or San Diego State? I always seem to mess up those two. I confuse San Jose and San Diego State all the time, and that's 100% my fault. So you got 2 big additions in that secondary for Texas, but in my opinion, Makuba, that's a huge win, and I don't think, gentlemen, he's being talked about enough on a national stage in terms of what a giant win that is. So that's my number 1. Cole from San Jose State. Yeah, love that win for y'all as well, Benji. He's a really good player. He graded very highly on everywhere I've looked. Big win for y'all. But Makuba, to me, like as big as Cole is, Makuba, next level. My number 2 is going to be Dominic Williams going from TCU to Oklahoma because Oklahoma has DeJoun Terry. They have some guys in there that they're excited about. But being able to pair a Dominic Williams with a DeJoun Terry to help your younger guys kind of get acclimated and not as much pressure on them, Man, that's big. That's really big. And Dominic Williams is a dude, man. And let's be honest, the last guy that OU got from TCU was just a first round guy. And certainly I'm not saying that that's the expectation laid there for, right? That everybody's going to be like that. Just letting you know that they've had success from that transfer portal there. So I think Dominic Williams, big win for the Oklahoma Sooners being able to get him in there, because we know if you can disrupt from the interior, that means a lot, especially for your secondary. Luckily, OU returns the most talent on that defense in all of the SEC, but getting in Dominic Williams, that's a big one. My number 3, I lied to y'all a little bit. I said I wasn't going to go this route, but I am going to go this route with number 3 because I almost went Cam Ward.
Oh,
Cam Ward to me is big because Cam Ward, and Coach I have talked about this a lot. I don't know if you've heard this. Cam Ward to me is so big because this is a big year for Cristobal. I think that everybody talks about how much pressure is on Napier. And while I agree, my take has always been, well, what about Cristobal? Because if he doesn't succeed with that easy schedule and Cam Ward, like, what more do you need? And I get it. He's had some injuries over there at Miami that have come at really unfortunate times, but that's going to be my honorable mention. For me, it's going to be Parker Brailsford is going to be my number 3. Allowing him to be the brain of this offensive line, huge. Absolutely huge for Alabama. We know that center was a thorn in Alabama's offensive line last year. Seth could block, no doubt about it, but the consistency in snaps is something that I think you're not going to see as much. At least I certainly hope not. So those are my 3. Andrew Makuba for Texas, Dominic Williams for Oklahoma, and Parker Brailsford for Alabama. And that's not saying that those are the only ones. Those are just some that stood out to me. We're going to go counterclockwise here. I did that right. God, I'm not an idiot. I actually got counterclockwise right. Coach I, we're going to start with you. Give me, and you're not bound by 3, right? You can list as many as you want. I just 3 is a magic number. So
Well,
that's why I
we
did
talked
that.
about with the hopefully fake news with Jackson Dart. I mentioned a couple of them. With for Ole Miss, the combination of Walter Nolan, Prince and Mommy Ellen, transfer from Florida, and Amos
Good one.
coming over. Like I said, Pete Golden wants to run more man to man. Zone doesn't fit them very well if they're trying to compete for a conference championship, not against the quarterbacks that they're playing this year in the SEC, because I do believe the SEC has the advantage at quarterback like the Pac-12 did last year. So
Yep.
those guys up front, Nolan and Mommy Ellen, can create that pressure to allow your guys to play that man-to-man in the back end, and then bringing Amos on, who, like I say, I mean, it was a short time, but he showed that he can definitely play man-to-man. So I think that was huge for Ole Miss, because I went back and watched the Georgia Ole Miss game yesterday, and I was like, why? How did we beat? Like, I thought we were better than them, but I was like, how did we beat them 52-17? It was because they had to play zone all game, and you can't play zone against Carson Beck, dog. Like that's
No.
just not gonna work for you. So I
You
think
got to
that
heat him
helps.
up.
Right, you got to get in his face. If you give him a clean pocket, it's just not gonna. It's gonna be a long day for your defense. So Rocket Sanders at South Carolina. South Carolina didn't have much of a run game last year or the year before, and they got a brand new first-year quarterback in Lenore Sellers. He's a running quarterback as well. They're trying to move more towards that read option. Having a running back like Rocket Sanders, transfer from Arkansas, I think that's going to be huge because they got a lot of young talent on the outside, but they need somebody that they can just turn around and hand that thing to when times get tough. And Rocket Sanders definitely is that guy. At Kentucky, Jamon Dumas Johnson, transfer from Georgia. He was a Buckets Award finalist 2 years ago. Got hurt, and then at Alabama and Georgia, if you get hurt, them young guys behind you, they waiting to take your snaps, and so that's kind of what happened. But he's playing behind what we talked about, one of those good defensive linemen for Kentucky, Deion Walker. I think he's preseason All-American defensive line, and that'll free JDJ up to make plays for that Kentucky defense, because they're probably going to need it. I don't think their offense is going to be what people want it to be with Brock Vandagriff, but they're going to need that defense. And then my last one is Kyle McCord at Syracuse. I don't think the pressure is going to be the same at Syracuse. At Ohio State, it's Ohio State. You got to play quarterback good. You got 5 stars breathing down your neck. one thing Stetson Bennett said in 2022 is he finally didn't feel like he was going to get yanked, every play, and that's why he was able to play better. I think that'll happen with Kyle McCord. Got some weapons in from the transfer portal on the outside. Wide receivers from Georgia, and Aronde Gadsden, the tight end, is back as well. Syracuse may not make it to the ACC championship, but they're going to be a thorn in somebody's side and create a couple of problems down the road for some teams that are trying to make it to the ACC championship.
I can't tell you how happy you just made me with all of those.
Yeah.
I love the Kentucky picks because that's something that I don't think we talk enough about, and that's on me, right? But I love that. But the Syracuse one, because Jake, Coach Sean, how many times have I been on here saying, hey, I'm not saying Syracuse is going to win a natty. But what I am saying is that they have assembled a coaching staff that when I saw it assembled, I sat back and said, whoa, this is what New York needed. New York needed one of their college football programs to get something like this. I love the shout outs to Syracuse because I completely agree with you. I really like the moves they're making. They get the defensive line coach from A&M. They get the guy, Coach Edwards, who was at Georgia for a bit, who then went to A&M and then Colorado. Like, they've got some recruiters out there as well as guys who can develop. So absolutely love those picks. Coach Sean, let me hear it, man. Who are your most impactful transfer portal additions?
Well, first, let me start with my own squad. And I really believe this. I believe Damani Jackson, for one. Not even because he's a Bama guy, but because it's a position of need for the University of Alabama. We lost all 4 people in the secondary. We lost 2 to the NFL. Well, actually 3 to the NFL and 1 to Ohio State to a transfer. Right? We lost all 4 people.
Right.
So to bring Damani in, coming off injury, who played in an inept defense, and let him get back to doing what he does best, being an athlete, playing the boundary, playing the field. So I think this kid, me and Jake talked about it, can play both. This kid was a dominating corner, a dominating athlete at one point in time, fastest kid on the team, fastest kid in California in that A. This kid can play, man, and I really think this is his first season where he's actually healthy to go back to being the Damani of old, and it's a position of need for Alabama. We needed a young man who played snaps, who learned from adversity, and a guy that could come in and start from day one. And I do believe that is Damani Jackson. Next, I'm going to go Damian Martinez, running back from Oregon State. I think he transferred to Miami. This kid is the same weight as Derrick Henry. Not the height, of course, but this kid's about 235, 240 pounds. On your right. This kid is he was the best running back to me I've seen out there in that league, man. This kid can play, bro. Damian Martinez, I wouldn't mind having him on our roster. He's a thumper. He's fast. This kid provides every utensil that you need at the running back position. I think that can only bolster Miami's offense. I think he is of great importance because these guys did not run the ball very well, right? I'll go Quinshawn Judkins for Ohio State. If Ohio State just don't try to be too cute and give this kid the rock, that will help these guys tremendously. Sure, they've got some other running backs on the roster, but I like Quinn. This is just me. I'm Travion Henderson, to me, that cat get hurt way too much. I like Quinshawn Judkins. This kid has towed the ball 25 plus times a game in the SEC, certain games against great defenses. He gave us fits, right? With a mediocre offensive line at Ole Miss. You put this kid in the Big Ten and let him eat. Quinshawn Judkins can be an absolute dog out there. By no stretch of imagination, I got 2 running backs, of course. I do think Quinshawn, I think Damian are too big, and Damani, excuse me. And lastly, probably Nick Scourton from Purdue, the kid that transferred to Texas A&M. I think quietly that kid can be, especially if they use him in the right scheme. This kid can really provide some good things for those guys in Aggie land. I think Elko, that's Mike Elko, right? I think that the way he played it, way he used his defensive tackles at Duke. I think they're gonna let this kid eat. Defensive end, defensive tackle, kid can play outside, inside. I do believe this kid can quietly become a day 1 or 2 player at Texas A&M. So those are the guys for me. 2 running backs, a DB, and Gordon.
I think Coach Sean hit it with Judkins because I think Travion Henderson is just as good, but you're right. You dude can't stay healthy. I mean, and
Can
if you
stay
can't
healthy.
stay healthy,
Yeah.
your best
2
ability is
years.
availability. You know what I'm saying? So
Hey,
Yep.
if you ain't
I love
available,
that,
then
Coach I.
you know what I'm saying. If you're not available, it don't matter if you Michael
Don't matter
Jordan.
how good you is.
You know,
Yeah.
like what we gonna do
Fact.
with you on the sideline. So I think
Yeah.
that's big. He gave us fits. Even again, we beat him bad, but
Fact.
man, that dude got vision, bro. Like when I tell
And
you,
look
he
how
did
many times he tote the rock. This kid can carry the load, man.
right,
He can.
right. Good call, Coach Sean.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, all good picks. And Coach I love that because I lived in college. Both my roommates were former college football players, and I would hear every Saturday and Sunday from PJ. He was the best man at my wedding, played cornerback actually for Pete Golding at UTSA. And he said the best ability is availability.
It's a fact.
Over
Right.
and over. So that's burned into my mind. And when you said that, I sat up a little bit and I was like, he's 100% right. I love Travion Henderson. I think he's phenomenal, but
Right.
2
hopefully
seasons.
he is healthy this year. Jake, take us home.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, I got a few. I think obviously besides your outside ones, of course, when you're seeing, for Ohio State getting Caleb down, sadly, but
Yeah.
as a big one for them, they needed that
Absolutely.
back there. Granted, their secondary should be fine even without him, but at the same time, he's going to be an addition wherever he's at, right? And those are some of your big names. But I think I really am going outside right now. I have a few guys on the squad that I'll get to at the end for Bama. But first, I'm going to say Dylan Gabriel, okay, at Oregon, right? From Oklahoma to Oregon. Oregon needed a replacement. They needed somebody to fill those shoes for Bo Nix to keep this offense, and especially in year one going into the Big Ten. That offense was heavily successful because Bo was mature enough. I mean, he was old enough to understand the schemes and what they want to do, and he didn't rush decisions, right? So they needed somebody to come in and take over so that way they could have a good year. And behind him, obviously, they have Dante Moore in the waiting. Pretty crazy what they were able to do, transfer portal wise with that. The next one I'll say is Jonah Coleman. For a lot of people who don't know who Jonah Coleman is, he was Arizona's stud running back. He has moved over to Washington. And Washington's running back room right now is looking really good. There are some guys in depth now there that wasn't there when DeBoer was there. And I'll tell you, Jonah Coleman, you go back and you look at him very much like Damian Martinez. We forget some of the running backs that come out of the Pac-12, right? Or did what was the Pac-12. I can go back and look at guys that I played against, whether it was Marshawn Lynch, Reggie Bush, Lendell White, Jonathan Stewart over at Oregon. I mean, the list goes on. I'll tell you that Jonah Coleman is very much one of those style of backs who can punish you, but has that step, get into the hole, and he moves, man. He moves. And the fact that Washington was able to get him, he's a guy who can be multiple down carry back, right? Like he's a 3-down back. He definitely can do the work and take on the workload that's going to be needed in the Big Ten for Washington. The next one I have is this might be an interesting one for a lot of people, but Cormani McClain. And everyone's like, well, Cormani, yeah, he didn't produce at Colorado. I get it. Like he had his struggles, right? But I think you give him a chance to get back home, to get comfortable. I do think he had a lot of pressure, and I just do not think he flowed with what they were doing at Colorado. Let's be honest here. You got to have, if you're going to go play at Colorado, you kind of have to have a certain mindset, right? You kind of have, your swag has to go a certain way. And because you are going to have to compete against a lot of egos. You know what I'm saying? Like you're not walking on the field. There's a lot of egos out there, but if you can mesh the egos together, you can be really good. I think Colorado's a big time sleeper team this year. But I'll tell you, like, I don't think for Cormani, that was a good fit for him. I think they asked a little too much of him. He needed to be held accountable in some of the things that he was not doing as a freshman. And I just don't think it was the right time for him to go somewhere like that. I do think though at Florida, he's going to be successful. I think the program, what they're doing there in the background, a lot of people don't realize I think that even with all of the noise, Florida is creating something back there that can potentially make a difference in this hardcore schedule this year. I think Cormani is going to step up and have that chance to do that. I really do. I believe in his game, and I believe in the defensive back coach there at Florida. Another one that I'm really interested to see. He adds to a unique room that's going to be, I think, a lot better than people are giving them credit for. But that wide receiver room at Oklahoma, Deion Burks. Deion Burks is going to be a stud. He fits right into, they have size and they have speed, right? You want to talk about some big wide receivers? Oklahoma's wide receiver room has that. And you add in a guy like Deion Burks from a speed standpoint and where he's able to line up, you definitely are going to put yourself into a position where you can run a multiple or have multiple different options for Jackson Arnold to get that ball out and get it where he needs to with the right size targets, but also the speed in the background to get that thing deep when when they set it up correctly. I was going down this next line as I jump into Alabama a little bit because I do think Alabama, regardless of them being the team that we cover the most, they did pick up some key transfers. Right? There's some big time transfers. I go first with Deshaun Jones. I think Deshaun Jones right now, as we've heard, is competing for a starting spot, and that's going to be on the boundary corner. So we were talking a little bit about this, what we were going to see and who was going to be where the other day. Coach Sean, on your channel, we were talking. It looks like Damani is going to play that field corner. So he is going to play the field. And you have then Zabian Brown right now, who is looking very good. There's been a lot of talk again of Zabian Brown continuing to impress. Another guy that's working with Brown in and out with the ones is Deshaun Jones. And exactly kind of what I thought. Deshaun fits that well. That backside needs to be able to come up and be aggressive. So I'm interested to see, though, with that being said, like how they continue to push Zabian to say, hey, man, you come up and play that run like a beast, right? Because that was one thing that was a little, again, it was a day game, right? Like he's not trying to tee off on his guys. Like Malachi came in and thumped, who was that going up the sideline, Haynes or Jam? He thumped him. Like Zabian backed off and Malachi come flying by and laid the hat. But I'll tell you, man, like I think that's going to be a good one for Deshaun, whether that's a rotation with Zabian or what they decide to do there. That's going to be a big deal. I saw it already in the comments that we had not brought this name up, but I do want to bring it up, and that is King Mac, right? And I think with him, he is younger. Okay, so that's something that's interesting for a lot of guys as you're going in and you're learning this new defense and you're switching over coming from Penn State over to Alabama. There might not be a whole bunch of talk necessarily on, oh, how are these guys doing or who's this or who's that. They're talking more so as a unit. But I will say this. I think King Mac plays a unique role where he can be versatile as he gets more familiar and comfortable in this defense. He plays a role where he can back up potentially a Keon Sabb, or he could even back up a Malachi Moore. I think where you look at the only other guy who is impactful, who I don't think people realize, right, is with Howard, okay, from Charlotte, the safety. I'll tell you, with him and his size and his aggressiveness, he could come in and definitely play at either of those, whether it's rover closer up, right, again backing up Keon Sabb, or he could play at that Husky spot. So it's going to be interesting to see how these guys get, especially the new guys who are transferring in from and weren't there for spring necessarily, how they get used and how fast they can get used to this defense and understand the concepts being taught. But I think you do look at those defensive backs who we got, and they were very impactful. I mean, that's outside of Keon Sabb and some other things, because we could go into that as well. But those would be my names for now. There's a lot more, but I mean, those are the ones that really stood out to me.
Right.
Yeah, listen, this is a conversation that we could stretch on forever. A guy like LT
right.
Overton, right? And I mean, you talk about some of the guys that even, I believe, who was it that there was another ACC team that got a massive transfer, and I want to say
What position?
Florida State.
DJ?
Didn't
No, they got some wide receiver transfers, if I'm not mistaken, because they lost
I think
everything.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then Missouri, right? They get a guy to replace Cody Schrader, and that right there was probably the biggest question to even right now. Even though I love who they got to replace Cody Schrader, that's still probably my biggest question with Missouri. Love what you have on the outside. Love some of the moves you made on the offensive line, bringing in a Caden Green. I'm sorry, Oklahoma fans, but listen, that's the discussion we're having right now. I had to listen to Jake say Caleb Downs, so you'll be fine, right? But even though they have all of that, and I grant you that, Cody Schrader made that offense go. I think he was maybe the most under-talked about, undervalued player.
Yeah.
Maybe in college football, because everybody would talk about Luther Burden, and I get it. Luther Burden might be the best wide receiver in the SEC. You know, he might be the best wide receiver. He could be the best wide receiver in college football. He's on that short list. He's that good. But when I looked at that offense, I was like, they have to respect Cody Schrader, which makes Luther Burden's job a little bit easier. It makes the passing game's job a little bit easier because he did everything. He did everything. Jimmy, is it now confirmed on the?
I didn't see anything.
App?
I was searching the Bird app. I didn't see anything, but I mean I don't follow
My phone's
a whole bunch
all
of
the
Ole
way.
Miss people either, so I don't know. Cody Schrader definitely was key for Mizzou though. When they came to Athens, gave us fits. I was telling somebody the other day, it's like, hey, Burton didn't do anything against us. You know what I'm saying? He had one long catch and that was it, pretty much. But it was Cody. We couldn't stop Cody. Cody was getting 4 and 5 yards a pop. So whoever they brought in, hopefully he's as good as Cody, because Cody made that team go last year. So.
Yeah, that's right, man.
Julian Fleming is somebody I want to talk about. Like, if Penn State's gonna pass the ball like they need to and let Drew Aller show some of those physical abilities, it was key for them to get Julian Fleming, a proven wide receiver from Ohio State. So
that's right.
Ephraim says, should college football start regular season in July? You know how damn hot it would be.
Right. If it did, we'd wanted to start in June.
That's right.
we can't get enough.
You're 100% right, Coach. And then when it started in June, we'd be complaining that it's not in April.
Right.
Yeah.
We'd keep moving the ball.
It's definitely too hot in the South for July football. I can tell you that.
Boy, we went to, as we're winding down the show, because I got my little niece's birthday party I can go to here in a bit. But we came back from Colorado in May, Coach and I've told Coach Sean, I've told Jake this. And Texas had gotten those hellacious storms, right? All over the news, getting just nailed by tornadoes. It's like 107 degrees one day with a humidity that would make Florida proud, right? And I was sitting out there in the backyard, sprawled out, trying to do some yard work. And I questioned a lot of things in that moment. Now imagine playing football in that. And I understand it's hot in August.
It is.
That July heat, that's the devil's toenails hot, right? I mean, we're talking something ferocious. So,
yeah,
I like where it's at. I like.
The worst thing. And these guys can speak to this. Once you get out there and you balling, it's hot, but you don't really think about it's hot. You're just trying to ball. This is the thing I used to hate the worst. Man, it used to drive me bananas because I could never get it out all the way. When sweat, usually you can catch it before it get in your eye.
Yes.
That one drop that get in your eye and you wipe it out with your jersey or your towel and it's still burning. You're like, damn, I know I got the sweat out. And you're trying to wipe it out. You're next in the rep and you're trying to wipe the damn sweat out. I used to can't stand that. That was like my pet peeve, man. I would always put on these towels to where I could get the sweat out of my eye. It was crazy. And it's crazy because I noticed some helmets back then, we still had Revos back then. It's just up to date. We didn't have all the air pockets that they got now. We had air pockets, but they got helmets that you pump up. I got all kind of stuff now, bro. Micro gel and all that stuff. Revo
I wish
shots.
we had all that, man. We was using
Facts.
Rydell helmets, man.
Yeah, I still remember
With
them old Rydales. Yep.
with them big thick white pads right there on
Right
you,
here in the
like you
front.
say.
Right here in the front.
Right. That's why
Yeah.
and then they used to sweating right down on your forehead. You like in the middle of the
Man,
rep.
couldn't
Coach wonder
stand
why I
that,
can't
bro.
catch the ball. I'm like, it's sweat, man. Like
Yeah.
it's July and we're doing 3
Yeah.
of these. Like, what
Look,
are
I
we
tell
doing,
everybody,
dog?
if you've never had sweat drop in your eye, like directly in your eyeball, like a eye drop in your eye, man, that's some horrible stuff to get in your eyeball while you're trying to perform. It's terrible.
Oh,
Terrible.
brutal, man. You know, that's where
Yeah.
that's where it came in to start wearing like the bandana. That's why
Yeah.
honestly, that's why I started wearing a bandana. Everyone's like, "What are you trying to
Mm.
be, Deion Sanders?" Like, no, dude, I'm trying to keep my face
Man,
normal.
we
You
weren't
know?
that
Yeah.
advanced in the 90s, dog.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was horrible, man.
yeah, yeah. True
Terrible.
fact.
Well, I'm gonna tell you all this. I can speak from the other side of this. I don't want to be a fan sitting in the stadium. It's 145 degrees.
Yeah,
You might forget how hot it is, Coach Sean, but my ass ain't forget how hot it is. As I'm packed up there like a sardine. So
Yeah.
that's where I'm looking at this from.
Yeah.
Gentlemen,
yeah.
it's that time. We're going to go around the table, let everybody know where they can find your great content. Once again, we're going to hit this counterclockwise. I am on a roll today, guys. And this
I
isn't
love
going to
it.
extend
Yeah.
to Monday. This isn't going to extend to then. So I want you all to remember this moment right here and remember me for this moment, not what's coming on Monday. Coach I, where can they find all your great content?
Y'all can check me out at Fan Addict Sports on YouTube, IG, Twitter, Facebook, all of that. Tomorrow night, 9 o'clock Eastern time, we'll be doing the Saturday Night Snap Count. We're doing an SEC preview. We've been previewing each conference. Of course, we saved the best for last. So we got the SEC content coming out. And then, of course, you can catch me and Jake on the Breakfast Tailgate, 10 o'clock Eastern, Tuesdays and Thursday mornings for our breakfast show, man. So yeah, get in there and check that out. We also do season previews and team previews. Our South Carolina preview is doing pretty good right now. Hey man, they got a lot of I guess they're happy right now. Like,
Yeah.
to get in on them before they lose a couple of games.
Dude,
Yeah, keep the excitement at an all-time high while we're still in the theory crafting stage of the season
Right.
before some heartbreak occurs, right? So y'all be
A
sure to
lot
check
of it.
all that out. Coach Sean, as Boomer is
Uh,
saying, you keep nursing that lip sweater, but where can they find all your great content?
You can definitely find me, man, at JMHO Sports Talk. That's on YouTube and Twitter. Please subscribe to the Twitter. Please follow me. That stands for Just My Humble Opinion. I want to give a big shout out to Ty for letting all of us come on and do our thing. Shout out to Coach Jance. Shout out to Coach Smook. Shout out to Jason from Hall of Fame Sports. Shout out to Brinsky. Shout out to Coach Carl and On the Block Sports Talk. Coach Smook, Jance, Brinsky, Carl, all the panel, man. Jay, Coach I, these guys are great. Just tap in with us, man. A lot of great football content. And big shout out to one of my partners, man. Big shout out to Terrell Garner, Alabama A&M University #1, for actually making Alabama A&M University a HBCU league on Team Builder. I can actually play with
Oh, that's
us
cool,
now.
man. That's cool.
Shout out to them, man. Appreciate that, man. Much love to the HBCUs and all the players, man.
Love it. Love that you're able to do that. And Jake, you have a
Yeah.
healthy lip sweater up there. So where
That's
can the
right.
people find all your great content?
That's right, man. I can't ever let that go, man. Can you imagine what happened if I shaved it?
Boomer's hilarious.
Just kill my whole vibe. 100% set the tone college football, right? Newer channel, put out a fun video with Coach Sean and Coach Carl. That was awesome. And then you can catch, like, I also do the dual streams, like I'm streaming this one, but do the dual stream with Coach I for the morning breakfast tailgate. And that's a lot of fun. I mean, we have a blast doing that. And I appreciate you, Coach I, for letting me come on and hang out with you guys. Like we get into some different subjects too. And so there's a lot of fun talk. And as the season rolls on, I know we kind of talked about jumping on with doing the Saturday night tailgate, or right? Yeah, Saturday night snap
count. Yeah, he'll be on during the season for sure.
That's right.
Every Saturday night after it's all said and done, we'll be talking about it.
Boom. And so it's going to be a lot of fun doing that. And obviously with Coach Sean jumping on your channel, man, I always appreciate you, like Tuesdays. And we tonight. I think, are we rolling tonight, Coach Sean?
Yeah,
Yep,
6 p.m.
we got Friday tonight, so that's gonna be fun. I'm excited to talk to you guys all then too. If you didn't catch it, I kind of got on a little bit at way off sides last night, so that was fun. And obviously, always hanging out with Ty. Man, Ty, I've missed you, dude. I haven't seen you in a while. It's nice to have you back, or nice to be back
Thanks.
myself too.
Facts. And Jake,
Yep.
if hopefully Ty will be available and Coach I'm gonna put the link in our collective. I'll drop it there probably about 5:15.
Yeah.
If you guys are available, hop on, man.
Perfect.
Whenever you want, man. We just be talking football, every team, any team. Just kind of just vibing, for an hour or so. Whatever you guys get an opportunity.
Yeah, man.
Appreciate Ty for letting me come on. I've been waiting on my invite to the around the table. So
love it.
Man,
good to be
all
in
you
here.
need to do is you ask these guys.
So-
You just shoot me a message being like, "Hey, I'd love to come on the stream," and I'm like, "Hey, I'd love to have you on the stream."
Perfect.
All right. Stay on the lookout for
I'm-
me and Jake and Coach Sean and Shawty at the end of the season around signing day. We'll have it's gonna be called Eye in the Sky.
Eye in the Sky.
And we're gonna be
Boom.
doing some film review on recruits, not just from Alabama and Georgia, but all over. So
All
be
over.
on the
Yeah.
lookout for that.
That's going to be a lot of fun. Something we've talked about, and now that we're starting to roll that direction, like as I said, December's rolling around. That's going to be cool. I hope you guys enjoy that, because we're actually going to look at film, and you guys are going to see it with us while we talk about it, and to get these guys' perspectives and breakdowns of what you're seeing. Shotty, if you don't know, played wide receiver for Georgia. Obviously, Coach Sean played running back, as he was just talking about HBCU, and yeah, I played safety. And so, and we've coached and we've seen different aspects of the game. So it's going to be a lot of fun to get in there and look at this film and give you guys kind of our perspective on what we're seeing with these players and what they could turn into at the next level.
Love it. That's a great idea. I know that's going to be super successful. So really looking forward to that. But until next time, guys, I got to introduce y'all to the fifth member of the panel, who's always quiet, always is patient, but always gets the last word. And that is the spinning wheel of doom.